Yee, 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 yee. Okay, it does look like we are live because I'm getting my little yellow light that says live. And can you see me live, Terry? Do I
I
look like
can, I
I'm
can.
do I look
Y-
alive to you?
Oh, that's another question.
You know, about 20 minutes ago, I had some beetroot and carrot juice on, and I was testing, making sure the camera was working right. And so I take this nice big sip, and then I look at the camera, and I have like this big red lips, and I go, "That's how I should start the hangout today, with the big lips like a clown." Uh, Hello, Open Hearts. We have been aware that you've been watching all this time. And so both Terry and I would like to just welcome you once again to this space that we created, to just simply to connect with you, to answer any questions that you may have, and to explore a topic as it relates to heart intelligence and what it means to live from the heart. And mostly so that we can support you, and also so that we can have some fun. I have a strong belief that if this works, if we're not having fun with it, then we're not doing it right. Because ultimately, this work has to be about, connecting with our inner joy, connecting with that sense of feeling alive, connecting, of course, with the aspect of compassion within ourselves, so that we can live life more from that space. There's enough, as Terry and I were saying last week, there's enough negativity out in the world. I even have to say that I even, like 20 minutes ago, I was going through the news. I was catching up on world news and looking at what was happening in the Middle East. And I noticed I started feeling some like angst and even like guilt. Like, oh my God, I'm going to go do this talk about, or just, have this conversation about living from the heart and opening our hearts with Terry, and look at what's happening in the world. Like I even feel guilty of like wanting to feel good when in the world people are killing each other senselessly. And so anyway, I don't mean to bring us down, but we need more spaces where we can come alive, where we can come into this place of joy. And I like to think of it as what our efforts to counteract all the negativity in the rest of the world. So with that as a little bit of intro, I want to welcome you, Terry. Terry, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Gabriel. But I pick up on exactly what you're saying. And my challenge at the moment is, whilst I still enjoy my work, I've got overloaded,
Mm.
and for this last week, I I feel in a sense trapped. And that's an interesting lesson for me because, as much as let me own it for myself, as much as I enjoy what I'm doing, I still need to find a better way to create some balance,
Mm.
because maybe that's going to be a constant life lesson for me. Uh, I'm no longer doing stuff that I don't like doing, and I'm doing stuff that I like doing, and I never ever thought that I would get overwhelmed doing all the stuff I like doing. But that's exactly the space I find myself in right now. And I'm going to have to be much better in the sort of remaining part of this year of just managing my time and my energy, so that I can give to people the best of who I am. Because as much as I enjoy it, I cannot give the best of who I am to people if I'm feeling exhausted and tired. And but if somebody had told me that a year ago, that I could enjoy what I'm doing and still feel exhausted, I would have thought they were, a sandwich short of a picnic.
Yeah, I can relate to you. I can relate to you. And those are actually some of the thoughts that I was having on the way here about this thing that we call having an open heart, or moving from that space of giving other people the best of you. And this afternoon, a friend from the UK who actually lives here in Cape Town, asked me if I could give her a ride to the airport. She's flying out to UK because her father is very sick with cancer, and he's terminal. He's on this last few days. So we left an hour later than we were supposed to because she had last-minute stuff. Then we missed our turn to the airport, which made us arrive at the airport, slightly later than we thought. And then it turns out that once we get to the airport, even though she still had 1 hour, normally for international flights it's 2 hours, 1 hour, and I had dropped her off and I was already driving back home. They still would not let her get on the airplane because now security measures is you have to be all checked in and all ready to go within 2 hours. So I'm in the car, and she's screaming at her daughter, who's so unhappy that she missed her flight. Everybody's on the phone. She's broken down. I'm driving the car, and I remember I was so calm and peaceful. And at that moment, I just simply said to myself, "Oh my God, this work must really be paying off because the Gabriel that I knew." If somebody would have made me waste 3 hours of my life, to go take them to the airport and miss it, and then all that stuff, I would have been blaming them. I would have been angry. I would have really not enjoyed any of it, and quite the opposite. It's almost like I told myself, okay, these are the things I practice for. It is for moments like this. So I'm just going to assume that this is almost like a 3-hour workshop that I just signed up for. And it's a workshop on having my heart open and being in a space of love and compassion. And that's exactly what I did. And I have to say, it was great. So I told myself, okay, now I got to try this at home with my family.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The way in which I'm sort of getting through my particular challenges at the moment is to look at them as exercises in a workshop. I can't change the exercise. This is what's been given to me. It's to deal with this particular problem, and it does. It is helping me to stay focused. It's not going to pass. It's going to pass. This particular problem is going to be gone, but I guarantee you there's another one coming. So I might as well learn as much as I can from this particular challenge, the way this thing isn't working the way in which I want it to work, and breathe into it and look for a solution. I mean, I think life is all in a sense about looking for solutions to problems, but if we look at that solving a problem from an open heart position as to what's right for us and what's right for the other person, then the solutions become, I feel they become a lot more elegant. They're a lot easier to implement, and you get a real genuine win-win on them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Terry. That's beautiful. And you're right. You're right. I think that is what happens when I'm moving around with an open heart. So I'd love to know from you, what does it mean to you to have an open heart? Because we hear it all the time. It becomes a cliche. And you can ask me about this because I used to be a soap opera actor, and I cannot tell you how many times I have to say a line, where I said, "With my open heart, I want to tell you I love you." What does it mean to have an open heart to you?
All soap opera stars have to say that line, and you say it so well.
Well, good. That means I haven't lost my actor gift yet, my acting gift, my talents. What does it mean to you? What does it mean these days, today, at where you are in life? What does it mean to have an open heart or to live with an open heart?
For me, I think it means about being gentle with myself, being open to the challenges and the situations that are being presented to me as a means of better understanding who I am. But whilst I always used to have that as a sort of intellectual understanding, I never relaxed into an acceptance that I'm going to get this wrong, and being at peace with getting it wrong. I never wanted to get it wrong. There was like a perfectionist streak in me that said, I've got to get this right. whatever right was, and I'd punish myself into mentally, just going over and over, that wasn't good enough, or I can't do this right because I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to do that. But an open heart for me is really about accepting how imperfect I am, but paradoxically how perfect I am by just accepting how imperfect I am. If that makes any sense. It just creates so much freedom that if I can accept that I'm not perfect, even this conversation with you, I swear to God, I would not have had this conversation with somebody a year ago. To be able to open up and genuinely feel I'm at peace at last with not being perfect. And saying that to some clients in my business who are really big companies, one particular at the moment that I'm giving a proposal for, and laughing with the MD of this company that, however we work together, you do understand I'm not going to get it right all the time. I'll do my best, but I'm going to make mistakes. And he's going, okay. And I would have been terrified of making that comment to a client in the past. But being able to say it now, it like gives me permission not to make mistakes, but it gives me space to breathe, because I've already flagged up my biggest fear is that I will make a mistake and you will not appreciate me, and you will have a go at me for my shortcomings, and the consequences of that. Oh, but it's like, I put it on the table. I'm not perfect. I'll do my best, and I think people are responding more to me by having that genuine humanness than I ever got when I was trying to hold it all together. And people would have told me that before, but honestly, I think this, until we do it, we don't really understand it. We've got to experience it to take it from an intellectual understanding to actually embody it and understand what it means in our life to be gentle with ourselves, to be vulnerable, to be understanding. Yeah, that's a long answer, but that's what being open-hearted means to me right now.
Yeah, so you're saying, because I took some notes while you were speaking. So it is about being gentle with yourself, being at peace with yourself in the midst of your imperfections, and I love what you said. It's about having space to breathe, and I agree. I agree with you. I think that those are the things that are the symptoms, or for me the results of when I myself am showing up with an open heart. I'd love to share with you it's like a theory that I have. I've been working with it for the past few weeks, of what I call is 3 layers about the heart. Can I share this with you?
Please.
And I'd love to hear what you think about this, because it's still a relatively new concept, but it's based on my own experience and also based on my own studies. Okay, so I like to think that the heart has primarily 3 layers. Okay, just like you have a heart that has basically like the muscle, and then it has the blood that moves through it, and then you have, of course, the space where the heart is held. I like to think that the heart also has these 3 layers. And the first layer, I'll call it the external layer of superficial emotions. Okay, and what those are for me is like it are the emotions that are being generated by my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all the feelings that let's say, for example, like I'm walking down the street and I'm terrified of snakes, and I see a rope, and then suddenly I go like, oh my God, snake, and I panic. So my thinking that I thought that was a snake, created these emotions, and my heart as the center of the seat of my emotions, that energy moves, but it moves in the periphery, or in the external aspect of the heart.
Mhm.
Okay. So what we have to, what I normally am experiencing on a day-to-day basis is really what I would say the feeling of my thinking. It's not the true feelings of my heart, but it's the
Mhm.
result, is the feelings that I'm getting because of the thoughts that I'm having. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll call that the first layer, and you can call it a layer of superficial feelings or the first layer of feelings or whatever. Then I believe that underneath that there is a wall. Okay. It's
Mhm.
like a wall. It's like an energetic wall, literally. It's the same wall that, what's his name, Bradley Nielsen, the author of the Emotion Code, talks about as the heart wall, which is it's an electromagnetic or yeah, it's made out of energy, but it really is all the emotions that I haven't really given myself permission to feel through my life. You could also think of this as, what Eckhart Tolle talks about as the, what does it call it? The, oh God, the something pain. What is it called? The pain body.
Pain
You can
body.
think of
Mhm.
this as the pain body. Yeah. So it's this pain, a lot of the pain that I have not given myself permission to feel throughout my lifetime. And most of it because at some point in my life, it hurt. So my unconscious mind said, "Ooh, I need to protect this soft, tender aspect of myself." So, we build this wall, this protective wall. And so, beyond that wall, or what that wall is really trying to protect, it's this inner core of the heart that I believe then is the core that all the spiritual traditions talk about as, the spiritual heart where true love or compassion lives, right? Because
Mhm.
and it is that layer, I believe it is that layer that really has the capacity to create unconditional love for not only for ourselves, for other people, but it is powerful enough to actually dissolve all the superficials um, uh, feelings that are created by the mind, by our thinking, if we only trusted it, if we only allowed it. Okay.
Mhm.
So, because one of the things, for example, that I notice when I start teaching people any kind of a heart center, heart breathing technique, that it's about energizing the heart, one of the things that often happens, and it used to happen to me at the very beginning, is your heart starts to hurt a lot. It's like you literally feel this pain on your chest. Have you ever experienced that? Whenever you're doing any kind of breathing meditation on the heart, and you feel this pain in your chest?
Mhm.
Have you? I'm
Yeah.
asking you.
Yeah. Yeah. No. 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 Sorry.
Yeah.
I was quiet when I said it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so see, so for me, that is almost like that layer begins to dissolve a little bit, but it's almost like all these emotion that I haven't allowed myself to feel for a long time. So it hurts. It creates the feeling like, oh my God, it hurts. But after that feeling goes away, it's like the inner core of the heart begins to open up, dissolve that wall, and then it begins to then allow I just call this more superficial emotions, and it begins to love them, allow them, so I can still criticize myself, I can still feel guilt, I can still feel shame, but I just allow all of that, and it's almost like I allow that core of unconditional love, compassion, to love myself, even though I'm feeling imperfect and feeling guilty that I'm being imperfect, that I'm not prepared, that I'm not good enough, or whatever. It's that the core of my heart can take that and more. And so
Yep.
what my definition these days of of having an open heart is exactly what you said. It's that feeling of deeply loving every aspect of myself, every emotion that rises within me, and of course in other people as well. And then it generates a feeling of peace, and also that same feeling of like, I can just breathe all this negativity and my heart can handle this. It may not feel good sometimes, it may bring me down sometimes, but I'm trusting that my heart has the capacity to wash this, to cleanse this, kind of like it cleanses my dirty blood, if you want to call it like that. And so these days, more and more and more, I'm moving into this metaphor of these three layers of the heart. I love to hear what you think about this thing, because it's still pretty much at the idea of a. Of course, it's a model. I don't know. I didn't get a phone call from God saying, "Yes, Gabriel, you got it right. That's exactly how I made the heart." You know. But I love to think what you think. Does this make sense to you? Can you relate to this?
I can relate to it. Um, I have a thing about models. Um,
Like Sports Illustrated models?
No, no, spiritual models. And on the basis of, do they help me? How do they help me? Do they help me understand something, or do they help me actually solve something? This, I feel, is a model that helps illustrate what we do to ourselves. The key for me is, how do you get to that inner core, where everything resides, that you can be full of love and compassion and access that. And when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, what sprung to mind as you were taking me through this was this concept I said about prayer. That, and you asked me, what were the ongoing spiritual practices that I did, and prayer actually fits inside that model you just described, because when I'm troubled and struggling with life, I am trapped between the superficial emotions and the wall. I often refer in that sense to the wall as being like dragons by the door. It's like, you're not allowed through here, Terry, because if you go through this door, I'm going to lose power over you, and I'm not prepared to do that. So slaying the dragon has become obviously very important. And almost the way in which I've achieved that through prayer is to imagine myself really emotionally connect to the Terry who's the other side of the door, the other side of the wall, who's in the core. And in doing that, like, I don't know what it's like the other side of the wall, but I visualize the feeling. That's the other side of the wall. And I experience it enough to be able to let go of the negativity and the pain body that I'm trapped in. So in some ways, it's a really good example of how we get trapped in thinking that no longer supports us, and if we continue to go down that route, we reach this energetic wall where there's just so much pain and discomfort we don't know how to get through. And every spiritual teacher, every heart intelligence person, what they're doing is they're sharing solutions that they have found to get between level 2 and level 3, get from behind the energetic wall to the inner core. And in some ways, therefore, for me, the value of the model is to say, that's all we're doing. We're going from here to this impasse to here. What solution do you have right now to get there? And the more solutions we have for getting over that wall, beyond that impasse, I think the greater the sense of freedom that we experience in life. And one of the big things for me has been recognizing that this is never a done job, because every single day it feels sometimes that I've got another wall to climb. But if I'm clever, and sometimes I'm clever and most of the times I'm not, I recognize that it's a different wall and it's slightly higher than the wall that was yesterday. And so I can easily beat myself up. My superficial thoughts of, when will I ever learn? When will I? And it's a different scenario. It's a different problem. But it feels the same because I'm going back to this superficial thought of beating myself up that I haven't got it. Right? But when I'm clever, in those moments when I'm clever, being able to stop and look and go, actually, it's different. it's not the same problem. It looks the same, but it's not the same. So it's like a slightly higher grade problem. And once I pass that, once you've graduated from kindergarten, do you always want to keep going back to kindergarten? You don't. You go on up different levels of school grade because that's how you grow. That's how we develop. And I'm sort of really learning to appreciate that I need different problems. And as soon as I don't have a problem, I'm going to get bored. And that might seem really strange because from a lot of spiritual practice, it's like when you get to this elevated status, all your problems will go. And it's, I am at peace. I think we might be at peace when we're dead. I'm not quite sure what happens and waits for us the other side. But up until that I'm dead, I want to feel alive. And part of feeling alive is stretching and growing. I mean, all these athletes, we've got the Commonwealth Games on it in the UK at the moment. Those athletes that are going for world records, don't tell me they're not experiencing a pain body as they stretch themselves to breaking point. And once they've got that personal best, don't tell me that they're not trying to get another personal best next time they're on the track. I think somehow we've got to, in this process of heart intelligence, is to get ourselves to understand that it's an ongoing, unfolding stretch of personal best. And when we are stretching and growing, it's always going to feel uncomfortable. So can we feel at peace in that stretch?
That's
wow. I over chatted there, mate. As is my way.
Well, that is a mouthful. I agree with you. I agree. You know, can I find that peace in the midst of my challenging moments? And I think ultimately that's what it's about. That's when an open heart is most useful. Now, I just want to say that if you're watching this live on our Google Hangout page, you'll see that there is a Q&A button somewhere on your page. If you have any questions, either for Terry or for myself, please feel free to just simply, ask away, and then I'll be getting them over here, and then I'll be sure to answer them before we finish tonight. So absolutely. Just going back to this, Terry, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. And how do you think, Gabriel? Just in picking that up, how do you think heart intelligence can solve a problem like the Middle East? Whew.
I mean, jump straight in there.
Yeah. You know, which is, I think it's really great, because one of the things I haven't told you in the past week that we haven't spoken is that I have been thinking a lot about this idea of more beyond heart intelligence, the idea of applied heart intelligence. You know, and I've been thinking that if I ever were to set up some kind of a school about heart intelligence, I would call it the Academy for Applied Heart Intelligence, because I think that that there's a risk once people start learning about what heart intelligence is to just kind of live it as a concept, or just for me to manifest my car, my soulmate and a happy life. But the truth is, I think it goes even bigger than that. So I would love to be able to explore, as you said, how can you apply these principles of heart intelligence, which basically is like the principles of how the heart operates, what it does for us, but apply it in economics, in politics, in education, and so forth. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the answer that you're asking, the answer to your question, obviously, it's a profoundly complex one, But what I do know for sure is that heart intelligent principles of just simply, let's say we're able to sit down, two people who are at war with each other. We're able to sit them down in the same room, and we're able to teach them to embrace, you know, these layer of negative emotions, you know, that they keep seeing projected onto each other and keep seeing each other as their enemy, and to allow them, rather than to identify the enemy outside, identify those negative emotions within themselves until their heart can open up enough so that they can allow and embrace that aspect of themselves, you know, and then ultimately realize that who they're really fighting is themselves ultimately. You know, of course, yeah, it sounds like utopic, but I agree, it's a profoundly complex question. What
It
do you
is,
think of it? You know, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I mean, I raised the question because I see on Facebook um, a polarizing of positions,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, there's almost a mistake to think that there is a Middle East problem to solve as opposed to an individual problem to solve. Um, that Middle East problem has existed for best part of 150 years in its
Mm-hmm.
modern context.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was having a little look at the history of it, and there is a problem in terms of no line drawn in the sand, as it were. There's always the problem that existed back then and back then and back then and back then, instead of actually, well, what's the future to hold? And I think the focus is more on the past and the present rather than the present and the future. Is what's
Mm-hmm.
happening now working, or do we need to make a change? Now, I don't have an influence in the context of the Middle East, but what I do believe is that we as individuals have a responsibility as to what information we share. And therefore, if this problem has existed for centuries, it isn't going to be solved next week or next month or next year. What we can do is to actually start changing the debate. We can start changing the argument, and we do that, I think, more constructively by sharing something that has more compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen arguments that basically, if you agree with this, then you are against this. And if you agree with this, then you're against that. And it's not as clear cut.
Yeah.
We as human beings, I think, have a greater need to understand ourselves and others before we start having broad brush strokes as to how this problem would get solved. It
Yes.
starts with us as individuals and the message we're sharing with other people and
Yeah.
how we live our lives.
Yeah.
You know,
What we're in essence putting out every moment of the day.
absolutely. If in a modern world of social media, I mean, I heard is usually 6 degrees of separation. They say on Facebook, they say it's now 3 degrees of separation from anybody.
Well,
So what information we put out on social media is a living, energetic embodiment of what we believe. And if we aren't actually putting out positive vibes, that sounds awful. If we're not putting out something positive, if we're not prepared to look at the problem from a different perspective, then we become part of the problem, not part of the solution. And for me, applied heart intelligence is really all about understanding what am I putting out into the world. Am
yeah.
I think we were talking before we came online, are you putting out a +1 or a -1?
Mm.
And so it really starts with us understanding not that we're going to solve the Middle East problem with heart intelligence today or tomorrow, but the process of connecting to ourselves, to be authentic, to be real, to have enough compassion for our fellow man is the way. And I believe heart intelligence is a very powerful tool to help us understand our interconnectedness with everything.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I agree. And amongst the tools that I like to think are part of the heart intelligence tools, for me, the one that comes, the quickest to mind, and I think is really the only one to any kind of conflict resolution, whether if it's, political leaders in the Middle East, or just you and your girlfriend or your business partner, or, whoever it might be. It's just this concept of having a conscious dialogue.
Yeah.
And when I'm that, and there's a big distinction, and I really subscribe and really admire the work of Harville Hendricks, you're talking about models of his conscious dialogue model, because to me it is the one that really comes the closest to expressing what really communicating with another person with your whole heart it really is about, where I can be fully present with you, where I can mirror back to you what you're saying to
Yeah.
just make sure I understand you, where I can also learn to be with the emotions that are being triggered and learn to communicate them in a way where I can take responsibility for them rather than making you, the cause or the culprit of what I'm feeling. And then where we can begin now to find our commonalities in our own, in our own feelings, in our own hurt, in our own wounds, and connect this, and then from that place begin to actually then start connecting with the desires that we want, because ultimately, regardless of whether if it is in the Middle East or whether if it is, you and your girlfriend, your business partner, your child, whatever it might be, we're all longing ultimately, and I think I can safely speak for the majority of the human race. What we're all longing is just to be happy. We're
Yeah.
all longing is just to really go on with the lives and just be happy, have enough money and time to enjoy ourselves and be with the people that we love and enjoy this life. That, that,
I
that,
think
that
that
is my thinking.
I think it's true. I mean, I don't think anybody, well, maybe 1% of people, get out of bed in the morning thinking, how can I mess up somebody else's life? We're just trying to get through our day as best and as happy as we can.
Hmm.
But sometimes the way in which we try to do that becomes destructive. I mean, I saw a Facebook thing about, it says, my empathy for the suffering in Gaza does not make me anti-Semitic, nor does it make me pro-Hamas or anti-Israel. It makes me human. And I commented on that and said, I agree, I am a member of the human race, and we need to learn to relate better to one another. We seem to live in a world where we expect others to do what we can't. We expect others to understand us when we can't understand them. We expect others to be kind when we can't be kind. We expect others to be peaceful when we can't stop fighting. And, as Gandhi says, we must be the change we want to see. Nothing changes until we start to open up to something being different.
Yeah, yeah, and having an open heart for me is that,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
one of the things I like to teach, Terry, in my workshops is that the fastest way to an open heart is an open mind. Basically means I must have at least opened up my mind to the possibility that there has to be a different way, a way that my mind has not thought of, up until now. Now, I want to ask you a question, and by the way, you watching this, Terry and I have not really prepared much of what this conversation was about because we want to be really in the heart of the moment, which is really what heart intelligence is really about. And but Terry, I want to know when when has can you recall the experience that has opened your heart the most? When can you remember that your heart has opened up the most?
I remember when my heart was opened by being broken. Um, is it, which is different to it actually opening because there was a eureka moment or an experience. Um, if I give the first one, because both, in a sense, I think if we don't open our heart or learn to open it, the universe has a way of actually prizing it open, and and
Yeah.
and 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 in opening it, we have heartache. We get a
Yes.
we get a broken heart. It's like, come on, guys, I've tried to get your attention the gentle way. We failed, so I'm just going to rip your heart apart, and
Yeah.
then and then just actually feeling so shattered and vulnerable.
Yeah.
So there was,
So what,
so there
so what
was,
was that moment? Because yeah, I agree with you. You know, whether if it's because of a blow with a hammer or a 2x4 or somebody's
yeah.
gentle caress. But when was that moment that has been the most open? Would you
Well,
mind sharing that?
no, absolutely. The broken heart was when my ex-wife said that she wanted a divorce, and it came as a big surprise to me. I didn't want it. Um, we are very very good friends now, and have a far better and healthier relationship now than we had when we were married, and our two kids enjoy that as much as we do. Um, but that was a dark night of the soul, because it was like, you've known me for 20 plus years. If you can't see the good in me after 20 plus years, how am I going to find anybody who is going to see beyond my fears and my insecurities to accept me for who I am? And I had to deal with that for a few years. Um, and then paradoxically, actually, having got to a total piece of just being by myself and enjoying life, um, I met somebody, and she has, um, best way I could describe it, she has like a triangle. It goes ding. It's some vibration that she is just a gentle nudge. So she'll listen to me rabbit on like you are, and then just summarize something with a light little ting. And it's like, oh my God, that is so elegant, so profound. And she has helped me open up, um, because I feel accepted by her. I feel all my shortcomings and faults, I feel accepted. I mean, I've done the work on myself, but the way in which she is emphasizing that I'm okay,
Hmm.
you know, that yes,
That is
I make crazy sometimes decisions, but she can see beyond that. And so there's a validation that's allowing my heart to keep opening and opening, and long may it continue.
wow. That's profound. So
What about yourself?
both experiences then for you are were about basically other people. It was in relationship to other people.
It was, and I'll tell you the
Yeah.
reason for that is I came to realize that as far as my journey this time around, my security came through, or my belief that security came through relationships.
Hmm.
I think we're all looking to find security in some aspect. Some people find security in terms of status. Some people find it in terms of notoriety, popularity. Some might find it in terms of money.
Hmm.
My sense of security was coming through relationships, that people would love and accept me for who I am and not leave me vulnerable.
Hmm.
Of course,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
realize that ultimately, until you're yourself, you're not going to attract people who are a good match to you. Um, and that's been an echo right from when I was 5, going to school. I was in 8 schools in the first 5 years of my life, and I learned very quickly that if I didn't make friends, I could be by myself. I'd have gone through 5 years of schooling with no friends because my dad kept moving to different parts of the country because he was on on project work. Um, so the quickest way to make a friend is, for me, become a people pleaser.
Yep.
do, do things for
Yeah.
people. And so
Yeah.
I went through life until my 40s, basically being a people pleaser, being a control freak, thinking I was solving people's problem, but actually I was solving it the way I wanted to solve it so that they would feel indebted to me. Awful stuff now when I stop and think about it. But so that's why I gave 2 examples of, in a way, how heart intelligence has healed myself.
Yeah.
because I had the one extreme of pain in a relationship and the other joy in a relationship,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because I had done some healing and some work on myself.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the what you're saying to me, it's allowed me to understand a something I saw very recently. Do you know who Alejandro Jodorowsky is? He's
No.
actually a Chilean film director who lives in Mexico. He's made some really amazing movies. Anyway, he's got his own like little spiritual community of following. He teaches metaphysics and spirituality, alongside his film career. And he was doing this workshop in Mexico, and he was all about heart intelligence. And one of the beautiful things he was saying was that the only thing another human being can offer another being is your own heartbeat. It's the
Wow.
only
Yeah.
thing that you can offer is your own heartbeat. It's like I cannot give you more. I may do things for you, and I may make life easier for you, but that may not necessarily help you. What will really help you really feel loved and held and open your heart is if I give you my heartbeat. And so what he actually does in this workshop, and there's a beautiful, somebody put the whole workshop on YouTube, which is how I was able to watch it. He takes this man, and Alejandro must be, I'd say he's probably in his mid 60s right now. And there was like this big, kind of like chunky man, like this big, bearish kind of a guy, like tough guy. So he sits this guy on the ground, and he's sitting on a chair, and he just says, "Come here." And he grabs this guy and brings him to his chest. And then he just started touching him and caressing him like a baby as he was holding him close to his heart. And within 5 minutes, this man started sobbing and crying like an infant. It was for me, it was a demonstration, and he said it. He said, the only thing you can really truly offer another human being, if you really want to, if you really want to love them or help them, is the beating of your own heart. And when you think about the work of HeartMath that says that the electromagnetic wave or our heart signature, especially coming from a place of love and appreciation, radiates out and helps other people open their hearts. I think that what Alejandro is really saying is kind of like what you have experienced, in the case of your partner, your romantic relationship, and is that she's offered you her beating heart. A beating heart that is unconditionally loving, accepting, and then by doing that, she's helped you open your own heart.
Absolutely. And go back to that example I mentioned about earlier about work and being able to say to clients that I'll do my best, but I'm going to make mistakes. There's two things that's happening there. One is I'm acknowledging my own heart and my own position, but I'm giving them a chance to step back from the masks that they wear. Because if actually they want to take advantage of me showing an open heart before we've got into a working relationship, they're not a good match for me. Right? I don't want to work with people who want to take advantage of another human being. So if they can't, in a sense, get the space from which I'm sharing this, we're not going to be a good match. But if they see it and they actually go, wow, that's fresh, that's a fresh air approach, and it allows them to open up, then not only do I have a better relationship with them, but I believe it helps create a better relationship between them and the other people they interact with. So it all, in a sense, starts at if we can go first, instead of asking somebody else to go, but if they can, if they give us their beating heart, brilliant. But if we can give them ours,
Yep.
then we're not only in control of our own emotional well-being, but we're hugely in control of the environment that we create around us, because we're either bringing people into us, or we're going, actually, you need to just stay on the other side of the door because we don't fit. God bless you. Find somebody else, and that's okay. There was a very false belief that I had at one point that to be spiritual meant I had to like everybody. And it is a sort of, it's an old way of thinking, because actually at a soul level, yes, maybe we do all get on, but right now we're on the Earth School and we're learning some tough lessons, and some of those tough lessons, particularly for spiritual people, is you don't have to hate somebody not to want to hang out with them. You can choose to play with other people in an abundant world, in an abundant universe. You know, you've only got so many hours that you're going to be living here, so spend it with people who you have a closer vibrational match to. I guarantee you're still going to be stretched with them, but at least you're going to be stretched with a group of people who sort of get you more than the people on the extremes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Jesus said, love your neighbor, love thy neighbor. He didn't say you have to like them. They have to live with you.
And
Just love them. Love them.
Yeah, and I think people sometimes misunderstand what's meant by the word love, because it has too many connotations of romantic love and having to tolerate, accept things that you don't want to accept, and it's not that.
Yeah, yeah. For me, what really the let's just say that for me, love, it has to do more with a way of in which I'm being, and then it has certain qualities, and the quality there, and that's really expressed. It has to do more with acceptance, like accept them as they are, allow them to be who they are, let them be who they are, without trying to change them or fix them. Yeah, I agree with you. So you asked me. I noticed we have. I can't believe that it's almost like a whole hour has already gone by. And you asked me when's been the times that my heart has been the most open. And yeah, just briefly, the two times have been the most recent ones. Definitely was when I came to South Africa and also went through that heartbreaking week when my life as I knew it fell apart. And I lost the job that brought me here as a film producer, and then that same week my mother passed away, and I was turning 40, so I knew that I had the feeling like I was getting older, and that I was not happy with where my life was. And the way in which I experienced that moment was after I went through all this pain, and yes, even that pain in the chest that we were talking about earlier, after all these things happened, there was like this peace. Suddenly, it's like I didn't care anymore what else could happen. Whatever happened, I was okay with it. Whatever was going to come next, it's like I was so neutral about it. And there was a certain freedom and peace that came with it, and acceptance of what was. And it's almost like I could breathe, and I can't remember any other time in my life where I felt so present and confident, but and this deep feeling that everything was going to be okay. That regardless of what happened, that everything was going to be okay. So obviously it took a lot of pain to get there and resisting that pain. So but yeah, it was that same feeling like everything's going to be okay. I just know everything's going to be okay. And then the second time happened a few years later. It must have been about 2 years ago. I was out walking here in nature. And I remember being out at nature, walking into this area here in Cape Town that it's called the Constantia Belt. And I remember having this experience where suddenly I just felt my chest expand. And suddenly it's almost like I could see the vibration of the plants and the trees and the birds, and I felt connected like as one. Those experiences of oneness, I think is maybe an experiences that I may have equated to like higher states of like ecstasy in my youth, when I used substances to help me get there. But it was like an enhanced experience of joy, of openness, and of love, and then just pure just pure acceptance of what it was, and connection with everything. And if you notice, one of these experiences, if you look about like our biggest struggles, one experience had to do with my work and my mother, so it had to do with family, mother, opening my heart, and the other experience had to do with almost like finding my place in the world. You know, that on where I was standing and the beauty of nature around me, which I had always had, but I had almost like taken for granted in so many ways. So those were two experiences. So since we're now kind of at the end of our talk, Terry, I just love to just ask you just a final question, and it simply is, in a nutshell, from this conversation, what can you conclude then is an open heart, and what is the quickest way to get there? Of course, without without being hit by the universe's proverbial 2x4 that will crack your heart open.
I think I take from this, an open heart is one of acceptance and understanding and compassion. The quickest way to it for me is to do the pray, and I'll do it throughout the day. If I'm losing sight of something, I visualize myself receiving something that I want to give to somebody else. I'll even pray about you. I say even, because you're a friend, and I will pray
That's so. I love that. That's so sweet.
Yeah, and because I know you, and I know how much you care about people, so I can pray and ask for something good for you, and in doing that, I feel connected to you, but I also feel I move out of the funk that I'm in, and then I just get back on with what I've got to do. It's an element of service.
Yeah, yeah. It's by giving that in what you're saying. It's like when I give this, then I get it, and I get to keep it. That's really beautiful. And for me, yeah, I think years ago, when I was studying with Catherine Ellis, who's a practitioner at Agape, the spiritual community where I began my spiritual studies, she helps people with a broken heart. And when people ask her what a broken heart is, she would say, a broken heart is a heart that is getting ready to love more. So I've come to the conclusion that both an open heart and a broken heart, because a broken heart is like it's broken open. It's not like it's broken and you can't use it anymore. It's broken so that so like that layer that we talked about earlier in this recording, so that the layer dissolves. So both, whether if it's broken or open, it's open. And an open heart, it's open that it's getting ready to love some more. And for me, the quickest way these days, I've come up with this own little. I like using my imagination. And so what I imagine is that I have a flame in my heart. Like I imagine that inner layer of the heart as a flame. Like there's actually a flame or a candle. So I imagine that I'm breathing into it. And every time I breathe it, it's like I feed that fire. I feed that fire. And so rather than allowing the shit that happens in life to put out the fire, I imagine that by breathing it, I keep giving it oxygen so that I can deal with all that stuff. So that image works really well for me. So it's not only open, but it's also on fire.
You're a fire-breathing dragon, then.
I like that. Okay. Any last thoughts, Terry, before we say goodbye to our members of our community?
No, I'm good with today, and I've really enjoyed being here because it was a challenging day, and actually I feel more open just in the dialogue, and actually maybe there's something as well. The more we talk and share, not having a pity party, but share from a deeper space, the better we are, and the more we heal ourselves.
Yeah,
so be gentle with each other.
Yeah. I'll take up on that. Be gentle with each other, and then create plenty of opportunity to open up your heart and share with somebody else close to you what's going on. That is definitely another beautiful way to open your heart, but literally doing it with somebody else as a witness, especially when they can offer you the heartbeat, their own heartbeat, which is, as Alejandro Jodorowsky, is the only thing we can really, really give somebody else, our heartbeat. Well, thank you very much, Terry, for hanging out with us tonight, and thank you very much to you, member of my Open Hearts community. I really appreciate having you. And again, this space is for you. So email me, ask me questions, tell me what it is that you would like to have us do. You know, do you want to come? Do you want to be a guest in this Open Hearts Google Hangout? Yeah, let me know. I'd be more than happy to sit down and have a conversation. Would you like me to coach you? Would you like would you like Terry to coach you? Why not? You know, this space is for you. This is a community space. Okay, so please email me and let us know. Thank you very much, Terry. Goodbye, and goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much
Goodbye,
for hanging
everyone.
out with us tonight. And we'll talk to you. We'll connect again in 2 weeks from today. Okay, 2 Thursday from today. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.